Hello, my friends, and welcome to episode 9 of the Kiss Army Nation podcast. I am your host, Pasquale Veri, and I am joined by my co-host, Andy Moyen. Hey, Andy.
Hey, what's up? What's going on, Kiss World? What's going on?
So I mentioned in part 1 of the Adventures in Podcasting that being called a podcaster needs to be earned, and we definitely need to earn our place next to these two guests. So tonight we are joined by Mitch Lafon. We have Jeremy White of the Jeremy White podcast.
Yeah, what's happening? How you doing, people?
And he's got t-shirts. Look at that.
Yep, available now at loudtracks.com/Jeremy White. We get free shipping with purchase of over $50 or more.
You guys met Andy at the pre-party here in LaSalle, didn't you?
Yeah, of
Yeah,
course.
we did. Great place. And we had Jim Beast there, too, from
That's right.
Jim Bates is there. Mayor, he's running for mayor again. You better get into it, because I like saying I have a mayor as a friend.
I have 2 mayors as a friend. So
Yes. Yeah, you do. Yeah,
that's right.
I know a couple of chiefs in
Right.
the community, so I got that going for me.
You need to find some lawyer friends, right? That's even better.
Yeah, but they still charge you.
Maybe.
So I want to start the podcast with getting to know the people behind the voices.
Oh,
So
I
we'll
thought we
start
already started. What happened?
So we'll start with Mitch.
Yes,
Mitch,
sir.
Tell us about yourself and how did you get into KISS?
How did I get into KISS? Well, that's real simple. Back in, I live out in the boonies on the west end of Montreal, and there was really nothing going on when I was a kid. There was no TV channels. There was nothing. And we had a record player, and there was a lot of ABBA, and there was a lot of Disco Duck, and there was a lot of other records. And one day my brother borrowed KISS Love Gun, and I stared at it for many weeks and felt dirty looking at it with the blood and the ladies. But eventually I had enough of Fernando and Dancing Queen, so I put it on, and I loved it. And I fell in love with that whole imagery. And then he borrowed Double Platinum, and it was shiny. And oh, wow, it was shiny. And it was, it was beveled, or not beveled, but it was bejeweled, whatever. The letters were raised. And I put that on.
Yeah,
and then that was it.
They call it embossed, right?
Embossed, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good word for it. So that was it. It was my brother who borrowed records and left them by the record player, and I got to enjoy them and love them. And after that, they put out the 4 solo albums, and you had the movie on NBC, and it was like, wow, they're larger than life, and look at them. And I remember going to I believe it was Record Town, but it was in Plattsburgh, New York, at the Champlain Mall, and I bought all 4 solo albums, and the ruse was as a gift for my brother. And then eventually I bought Dynasty as my first Kiss album, and I was like, I'm in.
Nice.
And then we saw Kiss at the Montreal Forum, August 6, 1979, Dynasty tour. And they came out of the ground, and there was the thunder and the lightning, or whatever the sound effects were. And that was it. I mean, what do you want from a 10 or 11-year-old kid?
Right. No, totally. And that's interesting. I didn't know that you went down to the Champlain Mall and got those 4 solo records. You never told me that.
Yeah, that was it. But I mean, I had gone down with my dad.
How old were you?
Let's see. So they came out, 78? So
Yeah.
I would have been 10.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So we bought all 4. One of the only people to buy all 4 on the first day, or within the
cashier was like, score, big sale today.
Cashier's like, people are buying the Peter one? What the?
Right?
But I got all 4, and that was it. And you have to understand.
Still more than the Pauls.
Yeah, but you have to understand, at the Champlain Mall, they had a Kmart, and they had all the Record Town, and they had a KB toy store, and you had the Kiss dolls in there, and you had the Kiss all a lunchbox, and I mean they had all kind. They had a panoply of all kinds of stuff. So it was like Kiss Mecca every time we went to Plattsburgh, and so you couldn't do that. There were no foreigner lunchboxes. There were no anything. It was so Kiss became, mind and body. It became, it was like superheroes. Who needs Superman?
To be fair, do you really want a Mick Jones lunchbox? I mean,
no, you don't. They're nameless, faceless. Great music, but nameless, faceless.
Although if the lunchbox did say cold as ice and you kept like your frozen stuff in there, that would have been a good gimmick.
You know, Jägermeister is running Cold as Ice ads now.
I saw that ad actually.
So that was it. You know, it was the fact that they had all this marketing that got me into them. And I know fans, when they put out Dynasty and Unmasked, the older fans were like, "Oh, it's become a kids band now." And it's like, yeah, smartly so, because look at all these kids that are still here 40 years later.
That's
I mean,
right.
what a great move. And you couldn't do that with anybody else. I mean, we had the Cars and Rush and all kinds of other Aerosmith. We had all those albums, but none of them had lunchboxes. None of them had cards. None of them had. You couldn't go to a toy store and get an Aerosmith something, but you could go to a toy store and get a Kiss something. And you could go to Kmart and get a Kiss something. And you could go to the record store and get a Kiss something. For all the other bands, you could only go to the record store. So it was a bit dull. And I'm glad. And then I got to interview Gene in 1980 at the age of 11. So
We'll talk about that in a minute.
Yeah.
Jeremy, how did you get into Kiss?
Well, you know, when I was in high school, I mean, I kind of got into Kiss way later on. I was really into like Van Halen and like
Backstreet Boys and
Backstreet Boys and Shania Twain and Justin Bieber. And actually, no, Justin Bieber wasn't out at the time, but I was even to now, you know, I work in major top 40 pop radio, and it's like through my high school years, I was just exposed to every possible genre of music. So I was hanging out with my best friend at the time, and his dad had a CD collection of all these records, and it was a big CD collection. Like, I'm pretty sure he was a vinyl guy before, but he upgraded his whole collection to CDs, like all the remasters and all that. And I was looking at the Kiss records, and I saw that Kiss was coming to Montreal. It was the Alive 35 tour. And they're like, "Oh, we got to go see Kiss. You got to go see Kiss." And the whole time, like, Todd, his dad, was like, he's like, "Well, you know, it's not the real Kiss. It's not Ace and Peter, but, you know, these guys are good replacements. You'll enjoy it." And I'm like, okay, well, I didn't really know anything. Like, so I started listening to some of the songs, and I got into it. But what really, really, really made me the fan was the live show. Being there at the Bell Center and seeing the kabuki drop and the pyro and them coming down at the chains and Eric Singer's kit, like suspended literally by chains from the roof, and doing, like, honestly, it was the show, but there was something about Eric Singer's playing that night that just completely blew my mind. Like during Deuce, like seeing the but like going around the kit and just like playing like a monster. Like I'd never seen anybody play drums like that. And I was like 14, I think, when I'd seen it. I was just becoming a musician. I was becoming a guitar player, and my buddy was the drummer. I was a guitar player, and I was really, really into becoming a musician. And seeing Eric Singer the night completely like changed me. And from that moment on, I just went into the Kiss discography and started diving into it. You know, they came back like 3 months later too, right, Mitch?
That's right.
They played in July, and then they did the Sonic Boom show in October. Yeah. And I remember they were doing the bootlegs. Like you take the bootleg home with you after the show. I forget what it was called. There was a name
right here in front of me, in front of this computer. I have the entire set in a big steel box.
Yeah,
I should show it to you someday.
Dude, so I would bring that. I got that CD, and I brought it home, and I just studied it. I was so like just engulfed in the performance, like Paul's banter, like Montreal, you know, like, so what do we say? Do we say bonsoir? Do we say bonsoir? The whole like shebang of the whole show. And Eric's playing on that CD was just mind blowing to me. I could put that CD on like right now, and I could play that entire show verbatim. Every Eric Singer drum fill, like if you put me on Kiss's drum kit, I would be able to play that whole show from top to bottom. Exactly.
Trust me, he's done it while driving. I've witnessed it, and he's also done all Paul's banter while driving. It's from that show. Fascinating.
Yeah, so I've been a fan since like 2009-ish. I'm a much later fan, but to me, like that's my Kiss. Eric Singer, Tommy, Gene, and Paul. And that live show, it was just mind-blowing to me. I didn't know that that's what concerts could be like. My first concert ever was the Backstreet Boys. I was 5 years old. I saw the Millennium Tour at the Molson Center, and they came out on these hoverboards, and it was in the round, and like there was pyro, and it was a big band. So that was the first big show I'd ever seen. But when I saw Kiss, it was just that was something else. And like I said, the musicianship, the guys on stage playing their instruments, and Eric's drum kit, like doing like the drum fills like back and forth, and like it was just so mind blowing to me. So that was my introduction to Kiss, the live show.
I actually went to that show too. It was freezing out. It was a freezing out, and I actually dressed as, at the time they only had the jean costume out, that one from I forget not the cheap ones. The next ones up, they came out with they actually had the boots and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
The jean came up. The jean costume came out first, and I actually went to that show in Montreal, and it was freezing cold.
Nice.
I remember that show. Yeah, I do remember that show. Yep.
Good
Yeah,
time.
it was in October, and I remember it was like a cold October for some reason that year.
Oh, it was
October 9th or something.
It's like zero, and the wind was blowing, and I remember seeing past. I remember seeing you there, you, Dan, and a bunch of other people. We're all taking Mike was there.
Yeah.
That's when the costumes weren't out that long. They weren't. I think they had already been out since maybe I don't know, a couple months. So those kind of costumes weren't even out that long. And I knew Hans from KissForSale.com, rest in peace, that he's like, hey, because I helped him out with getting some stuff from Spencer to get it over to him so he could resell it again. And he's like, yeah, man, have some costumes. So gave me the jean first, and then the Paul one came out. And I'm like, come on, where the hell's the Ace one? And then finally the Ace one came out. I'm like, whoop, I'm going dressing as Ace. There we go.
I want to talk more about your podcasts now. Now, both of your podcasts are not exclusively about Kiss, but they cover a wide range of topics in the music industry. So, Mitch, we'll start with you. How did you first start getting into podcasting?
Well, I've always done interviews, and we have to transcribe when you're in print, and it was transcribe. And I was starting to do, 3, 4, 5 interviews a week. And it got to a point where the transcription was just way too labor intensive. And I remember Ryan Roxy of Alice Cooper's band saying, hey, there's a new thing called podcast. You should try it out. And so, I did a couple of early podcasts that I'd rather not talk about. And then eventually I went ahead and launched my own. And it's been great because it gives you a chance to get all these interviews out and not have to transcribe, not in the sense of being lazy, but in the sense of now the audience can hear the artist as the artist, not through me, typing stuff out and making it fit on a page. Now you get what they were trying to say as they say it. And so I like that idea of authenticity. I like the idea of, not me having to translate to the reader what you said, but you saying to the listener what you want to say.
Right.
And I think that's great. And now that we got into this era of Zoom and StreamYard and all that, I'm finding this a refreshing challenge, because now you get to see the person react. You get to see the person do stuff, and there's a couple of interviews where you've seen people, they're just sitting there on their phone, and you're just like, okay, well,
yeah. Or they call you from their phone, like while they're driving with the windows open, and it's like, tell me about your album. Well, it's like, oh God, come on, man. You had one commitment today. Like, sit at home and do this freaking interview.
Yeah, sell your record anyway. So it's been an interesting challenge, and the show was branded Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon by Chris Jericho, because my show when I started with one-on-one with Mitch Lafon, and I had wanted it to be one-on-one because I didn't want to be locked into just rock music. I wanted to do journalists, I wanted to do rock stars, I wanted to do movie stars, I wanted to do a politician if it so fit. And then Chris Jericho said, come on over to Podcast One. And we don't like the name. You're going to be the rock guy, so you're going to call it Rock Talk. And then rebranded, got the logos made, got everything made, got the T-shirts made, and then it's just like, I'm not going to keep it to. I'm not going to rebrand other time. So it stays as Rock Talk. But listen, we're in negotiation, Jeremy and I, to interview Joan Armatrading. We've got Triumph coming up. I've done Boy George, I've done Rick Ashley, I've done Bananarama. So you'll get anything. As long as I find it to be a compelling story,
yeah,
I'll do it. I mean, even Jeremy did Keith Urban the other day. Who's the lady that's married to the one on American's Got Talent that we did?
Oh yeah, we did Michelle. What the heck? Oh, what's her name? Terry Cruz's wife.
Yeah, we did Terry Cruz's one. I mean, so
her stage name is Regina Madre, but her
Regina Madre.
Something. What the hell's what's her name? Cruz.
Must be Michelle Cruz. Anyway, so that's the thing. We do different. I do different. He does different. It's interesting to not just be, because I've been on one of those KISS podcasts, and no offense to what you're doing here, but for me, every week talking about KISS became very tedious. And it would be the same if I was talking about Cheap Trick every week, or the same about Aerosmith. I'm ADD, you know. I mean, I've never been diagnosed, but I'm pretty much ADD. I need to move around and I need to do other stuff.
Yeah. Well, that's also kind of why, you kind of influenced me to get my own podcast going, because I started in radio when I was 15, and I've been working in corporate radio for, like 10 years at this point, in a major role. So it gets to the point where you kind of do enough of the, hey, we're doing 2 hours commercial free every single morning at so-and-so, listen to blah, blah, blah show on X90, whatever station. And
you got to paint within the lines all the time. And you're just like, ugh.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've interviewed all the major pop stars that you can imagine. Everybody from Ed Sheeran to Dua Lipa to, all of them. But, so
Shawn Mendes, right?
Yeah. I mean, I've met all of them, so it's, when it came to the podcast, I wanted to do something completely different that I wasn't allowed to do on the radio station. Because like we said, you really have to paint in the lines. Don't go out of your lane. You stay on the road, and that's it. And we have a very specific audience and demographic and target. So, I grew up loving, like I said, KISS and Def Leppard and all these bands. And there's no way for me to talk to any of these people on the radio station that I'm on. And I didn't have an outlet for it. And once I met Mitch and another friend of ours, he they kind of really influenced me and opened my eyes to, like, what?
Was it the other Mitch?
It was the other Mitch, yeah. Mitch and Mitch. They made me realize that, there's so much more that I could potentially do on another platform. So I got my own YouTube channel going, and I started up the podcast. And I just branded it podcast. Honestly, I don't even remember, because it was supposed to be a podcast, but then I eventually just became a YouTuber, because that's really what all I focus on, right, Mitch? It just became podcast de facto because of what it was. It was audio-driven content. Yep. But I also had the vision of doing the video thing. So, I have this home studio behind me where I originally planned on doing just stuff for the radio station, but then I realized, I'm like, oh, well, it's completely interchangeable. I want to change the lights to green and do all kinds of stuff. So it was a lot easier to do stuff once I had the home studio, and I wanted to do the video component. But then the pandemic kicked off, and all of a sudden, everybody from and their auntie and uncle had a fucking podcast.
Yeah,
and I was just like, oh no! Just as I'm about to do this, everybody's doing it.
Well, every rock star started doing it, which sort of defeated the purpose of interviewing rock stars if they're just going to get on the mic and talk themselves.
Well, dude, we talk about it all the time. We'd see, oh man, I'd love to interview so-and-so. Oh, he was just on 5 different podcasts this week. Oh, well, then it devalues that freaking guest because he's all over the place, So it's kind of, like I said, the whole way I got into podcasting was basically I wanted to interview people that I've always wanted to interview, and I didn't have an outlet for it. No. And I created my own outlet. And now I'm a YouTuber, essentially, that also has a podcast.
So Andy, I want to ask you actually, do you think there's too many KISS podcasts out there?
I'll answer for him. There's too many podcasts in general.
Yeah. I personally don't really care how many there is. It could be 5, it could be 5,000, because everybody's got everybody has a different audience. Just like you said, you got, for your radio station, everybody's got a different audience. I don't really care. Like I told Pat, you get, when you post, you guys must do that too. When you guys post something, you just let it roll off your shoulders. Somebody says bad things, says things bad about you, just let it roll off your shoulders, right?
Oh,
you don't really get sucked into
all
it
the time.
Yeah. So I was telling him, don't get sucked into it, because I've done podcasts,
been on
as special guests, and I don't mind. It's just fun.
No. If you get sucked into it, they win. But it's okay.
It is what it is, honestly, at the end of the day. It's like everybody's going to have an opinion. And honestly, the best product is the product that sells itself. So a lot of the time, the people that are upset at you or don't like is because they're jealous. And hey, let them be jealous.
So, Mitch, Is it fair to say that you got into podcasting because of your interview with Gene Simmons when you were 11 years old?
I don't know if it's fair to boil it down to that. I mean, it certainly helped. The gene thing helped. You know, when I was out in California in 96, 97, I did the LA Guns Wasted and the other, albums there. That story was one that rolled around, in the studios, and then people would be like, "Oh, you're the Kiss guy I heard about." I remember Tracy Gunn specifically saying, "Oh, you're the Kiss guy. Oh, I heard that story." So it did have a cachet to it. I don't know if the entire podcast thing comes down to that one interview, but it certainly didn't hurt. It's a good story. It's a true story. The audio is on YouTube. You can go check it out at any time. But yeah, I mean, that was a good, entree to everything that I've done. Can't deny that good story. Kiss at 11. Come on, it's a good story.
And how did that interview happen?
I called O'Coin Management and I requested an interview. That was it. I've always had a way with words. I've always had very strong language. And at the back of every Kiss album, it said O'Coin Management, and so I looked it up. And back in those days, and Jeremy won't understand this at all, but you could phone the area code of a city plus 555-1212, and you'd get the operator. And you could say, and that's what I did. I phoned 212-555-1212, and I said, "I need the phone number for O'Coin Management at this place." And the operator gave it to me, and I called it. And I sounded very mature at 11 because I had these big words, and they booked an interview. I mean, it was for the Unmasked album, so I'm imagining nobody was calling, but I was. And they gave it to me, and then I went down to my mom, who was doing some stuff for Denmark's radio, and I said to her, I booked an interview with Gene Simmons of Kiss, and she was like, "Oh yeah, huh?" I said, no, it's in New York City at O'Coin Management in 2 weeks. Can we drive down? And she said yes. So what are you gonna do? You know?
It's remarkable that she agreed and said, "Yeah, all right, let's do it."
Listen, it was the summer. It was it was June 9th. It was warm. A drive to New York sounded fun.
Yeah.
Not
that far.
Not that far. And then a couple of weeks, in fact, like 6 weeks later, we went back and we saw Kiss at the Palladium. So we did 2 New York trips that year. So one to interview Gene, and one to see Eric Carr's first show. It was you got to say, the summer of 1980 was really good, because, and then after that, 2 weeks after the Kiss one, I saw Cheap Trick at the Montreal Forum on August 11th. So those were spectacular 3 months of my life.
Yeah.
Can't complain there. Tease and Cheap Trick at the
nice.
Yeah, so we had Tease and Cheap Trick, we had New England, and we had who was it? The Rockettes and Kiss at the Palladium, and a Gene interview. Now, if that's not a summer vacation, as a school teacher, you would appreciate that's a summer vacation.
That's absolutely a summer vacation.
Yeah.
For an
11-year-old.
Jeremy,
You interviewed a Kiss member recently, didn't you?
Yeah, I've interviewed Gene and Paul in the last 6 months.
Yeah,
And
that's
Dave.
amazing. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, what do you want to know?
Well, first of all, how'd you get these interviews?
Well, it's actually a funny story, because Mitch is tied into that as well. Mitch and we went down to Ottawa to see Kiss, and we were hanging backstage talking to Doc McGee, and Doc and we started talking about, she's like, all kinds of different, there was a bunch of people in his dressing room that night. Like, you were talking to some girls, and like I was over and talking to Doc about
Doc was telling an interesting story about Indigenous people and how he took a motorcycle ride around the States to visit all the Indigenous communities. And
we were talking about Indigenous rights and Indigenous issues and all kinds of stuff. And I was talking about my community, and he was saying he's actually been to Ganhawaga and did a drive through the community, through the town. And so we're talking about, and after the show, Mitch and we emailed him just to say thanks, for the evening, blah, blah, blah. And we just sort of kept in touch. And then when Kiss 20
in Manchester,
Kiss Manchester came. Kiss. Yeah. It was
February 1st, 2020.
Yeah.
The first show of the end of the road U.S. tour or
Yeah.
leg or whatever.
Yeah. So we showed up early, and we were there.
Showed up at 2 p.m.
Yeah, but it was perfect because had we not gone that early, we wouldn't have ran into him.
Yeah.
We were supposed to be there. We were supposed to be there regardless, but we went early to get parking and stuff, and we just showed up. We'll see what's happening backstage. And as we were walking in, security's like, "Oh, what are you doing here? Where's your laminates?" And then Doc is coming down the hall. He's like, "Oh yeah, they're good. Don't worry." And they just took us and gave us laminates, and we just hung out for the whole. We got to watch Van Halen, David Lee Roth sound check, and
oh wow,
kind of stuff. But no, we were talking backstage, and I was like, "Oh, Doc, I'd love to interview Gene or Paul sometime for my own thing. Once I get my podcast going." And he's like, "Oh, well, keep in touch if the right opportunity comes. I'll try and set you up." So sure enough, I built up all these guests, and it actually started because I wanted to interview Gene's daughter, Sophie. So because I play her song on the radio, I wanted to feature it on the radio station. So I emailed Doc and said, "Hey, you wouldn't happen to have a contact for Sophie?" So he put me in touch with their management, did all that. And then I said, "Hey, thanks again. It'd be great if I could talk to Gene about Kiss 2020 Goodbye." And I get an email the next day from the publicist saying, "Oh, hey, Doc wanted me to set you up with Gene. Are you available on this day at this time?" And that's how it happened.
Nice.
Just networking and connections kind of thing. But
and the same for Paul.
Same thing for Paul. Yeah, same thing for Paul. But Mitch, you and I, we talk about this often. It's like in showbiz and in this industry, if you go about certain things in a genuine, authentic way, you're going to get a lot further than somebody that's just kind of trying to do it for the clout or for to try and get a name. The same thing with the radio career. It's like I've become friends with all these record reps and industry people just basically because I'm me and I'm just trying to I just have a good time and I like chatting. I like meeting people. Whereas you can kind of see the phonies from a mile away, and that's my biggest advice to anybody that's trying to do anything really. Just be authentic and just be real and be yourself, because things come a lot easier when you're all of those things. Yeah, that's how the Gene and Paul interviews happen. The Gene interview was awesome because it was really almost like talking to like a father figure. Like he joined on the Zoom and he's like, "Hello, young man. How are you? Did you drink your milk this morning?"
Did he go? This episode is brought to you by Gene Simmons Cola, the rock and roll royalty drink soft drink. You know what I mean?
That's right, young man. Did you drink your Kiss Cola? If not, go to kissonline.com now and you can get No, he didn't do that. But
he did that to me on my last interview with him. I would ask him a question and he would say, Gene Simmons Vault, GeneSimmonsVault.com. Every answer ended up with, and GeneSimmonsVault.com. And it was just like, okay.
I was waiting the whole time for him to like say that, like Kiss Online. But he did say though, he said kiss2020goodbye.com a bunch of times.
Oh, wow.
Yes, 2020goodbye.com. That's all you need to know. That's where you need to go. You get everything. Kiss2020goodbye.com. And then he also did a classic Gene thing. And I could almost picture Craig Gass like doing it as a bit, because I was talking to him about the set list, and I was like, "Why don't you guys drop, Let Me Go Rock and Roll?" And I'm not saying don't throw in something like Turn on the Night, but it'd be cool if you did Unholy or something a little more 80s. And he's like, that's the great thing about menus. You order the calamari, and I throw up in my mouth, but you love it. And I was like, yes, that is so Gene. That's the best ever. Yeah, that was awesome.
If you're gonna get rid of a song, get rid of "Say Yeah, Please."
Yeah.
You guys are talking about how you got your interviews with Paul and Gene, and it goes back to Mitch. I remember I was trying to get Bruce Kulick to come to my event, the Rocky New Year's
by the way,
Bash.
that would be the easiest thing ever, because Bruce is just doing everybody's podcast. He's a sucker for any event possible at this point, Pascal. Yeah.
Well,
if you email Bruce, he'll fly to your house at this point, probably.
Not if it's too cold, but
true.
I messaged Bruce, and he says, "I'll get back to you." And I found out later that he called Mitch and asked him, "Who's this Pasquale guy?" And then when Mitch said, "Oh, he's a cool guy, don't worry about it," I ended up going to New Jersey at the expo and having a sit down with him.
Nice.
And we spoke for a good half hour, 45 minutes about the show and everything. And then he says, "But it's Canada."
in
it's January and it's cold. So he didn't want to come because of the weather. But if you do it in the summer, he says, give me a call.
So do it in the summer next time.
Exactly.
Whenever you can. Whenever we can do these shows again.
It's funny.
Yeah, really.
Now people call me to vet if Mitch is okay.
Yeah, I know. It's true. It's true.
I think that there was something really interesting about the Paul interview, and Mitch and we talked about it because I was getting pressure from a lot of people to ask him about certain, rather uncomfortable questions regarding the final tour. And, I wanted to be diplomatic as possible. And I kind of hinted at certain things. And I made a joke saying, Paul, with this Soul Station record, why didn't you get Peter Criss to play drums on it? I mean, he was taught by Gene Krupa. This is kind of music. And Paul just looked into the camera and was like,
that's the greatest moment.
And he grabbed his Starbucks cup, and I was like, Paul, it's a joke. And he's like, you see me laughing.
You gotta put that clip on Twitter tonight.
Yeah, I should.
No more. Yeah, he's probably saying no more interviews with that guy.
Yeah.
That's done.
Yeah, probably. No, I turned it around. I saved it. It was good.
Yeah, and they loved it. They retweeted and posted about it.
Of course.
So both of your shows, you've had countless guests, and you talk about a variety of musical topics. Can you tell me some of the more memorable guests and some of the strangest guests you ever had? Mitch.
The most memorable are always, of course, the big names. Rob Halford, Alice Cooper, the Kiss guys. I've had Vinnie Vincent on. I've had Paul Stanley. I've had Gene. I've had Ace. Ace definitely qualifies as one of the stranger ones. The first time I interviewed Ace back around 2004, 2005, he had just left the band, and Tommy had come in, and I forget exactly what he was promoting. But the publicist said, you get 20 minutes, but you're not allowed to ask any Kiss questions. And I was like, but that's kind of the whole purpose.
Yeah.
And whatever else he was, what was he selling around at 2004, 2005? I can't remember. I can't remember at all what it was, but whatever it was, it's just like, people are going to tune into this interview to hear the Kiss stories, and then they'll be like, oh yeah, he's got a new album. Oh yeah, he's got a new book, or whatever it was. And they didn't want to go for it. So it was a very strange interview because I'm doing it. And I know fans are going to say, well, what's wrong with you? You're not asking Kiss questions. So it was kind of like, I'm going to get slammed by fans who don't understand the politics of it all. And it's kind of a boring interview to just say, so tell me about this new thing that nobody's heard of and doesn't really want to hear about.
Well, that's the other thing. It's like fans don't understand that you can't necessarily just go into an interview like that, guns blazing and ready to. I could have easily straight up asked Paul. Paul, tell me about your lip syncing in preparation. Like there's just certain things you can't do, and I kind of got called out on that online because my video with Paul talking about Van Halen sort of went viral. Like Eddie Trunk was talking about it, and there was all kinds of comments on there saying, "Oh, Paul's only going to do these softball interviews where the interviewers aren't going to ask him the tough questions about why he chooses the lip sync and this and that." And it's like, no, actually, because A, I really don't care. And B, I'm not a douche. Tell a product and you're doing me a favor coming on my show. You think I'm going to do it just for the sake of some clicks? Like, come on, man.
Yeah, and see, it's your career. If you start being rude to your guest, they're just going to blacklist you.
Listen, I got an all access pass anytime I go see Kiss now. You think I want to throw that down the tubes?
Nope. No, and of course the second interview with Ace that I did was even more peculiar. We were doing it was for, what was that first solo album he did, in Space Invader or Space
Anomaly?
Anomaly, yeah, it was for Anomaly. And
great album, by the way. I love that record.
He was shopping for mattresses.
I told you, I came from outer space. That's how I know Mitch's name.
which is a cover song, by the way. And he was shopping for mattresses, and he was there with whoever, his wife or his girlfriend or whatever, and they were like, yeah, blah 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 blah. Is it soft enough? Blah blah blah. Is it hard enough? And I was like,
oh my god.
And then he's like, hold on, I've got to pay for it. I'm like, what the? And then he's like, later on in the interview, he's like, hold on, yeah, just just put it in the car. Just put it in the car. It's fine. And it's just like,
man, you know what? That's
it's
just
like,
part of the course, though. You know, I mean, at this point, these artists, they come on and like I said, you know, somebody will be on the phone. They're driving down with their windows down, like, well, you know, my new album is we recorded Bob Rock, like, you know. Mitch, do you want to tell the story about the most recent Ace interaction we had with the publicist and everything, and the back and forth? You want to give a little bit of a scoop?
Which one are you referring to? The one where you did the interview instead of me?
Yeah, exactly. I think we should tell that story because this to show a little bit of like the political bullshit scenes when it comes to getting interviewed.
Start it off, and I'll fill in the blanks because,
yeah. So, like I said, Pasquale, you know, I've been in major market radio for the last 10 years. I've interviewed every possible major pop star you can think of. The liaison between the biggest stars in the world are usually the easiest to deal with. It's always the B and the C list management or publicists that are always a freaking headache. So I'm like 3 episodes into my podcast, and I see Ace has the Covers album coming out in the fall. So I asked Mitch, I'm like, are you doing the Ace thing? He's like, yeah, I got the interview. It's so-and-so, the publicist. I was like, oh, yeah, okay, I got his email. So I sent him an email that says, oh, no, sorry, he's not available. I'm like, okay. No, I couldn't even get a response. So then I sent another follow-up, and sorry, no, he's not available. And I was like, oh, okay. So then Mitch gets it and somehow wasn't available to do it. You had an appointment or something.
Yeah, it was at 10 in the morning, and I couldn't do it at 10 in the morning.
Yeah. So you called me the night before. You're like, oh, do you want to do it? I'm like, yeah, sure. So I tried to get him on Zoom. I was like, you know, can we get video? Because video goes a lot further with the podcast and the interviews. And it's just like no budging whatsoever. And they were like, okay, you got the conference number, this and that. You can't ask this, ask that, ask that. But it was just like, I went from having no response to getting a response saying no, to then Mitch getting the interview and saying, I'm not available to do it, so Jeremy's going to do it. And then the publicist just went completely cold after that because he realized that it was me who he'd already shut down. Like, it was the fact that the gatekeeper had the gate as high as the sky, but I somehow was able to dig under the little foundation. Was still able to sneak in, you know? And we were kind of talking about Cassius Morris, who I love, by the way. I don't see him online anymore. Like, he's not really like producing all that much like content these days, but he was on a roll. And I saw he had Ace on Zoom. So I was like, oh, it'd be so cool to talk to Ace like face to face. And they're like, oh no, Ace doesn't do that. I was like, well, I saw him on Cassius and he didn't seem to have the problem. And the publicist was like, nope, no video. So then Ace comes on, and we were supposed to have like 10 minutes with him. And I ended up getting like, I don't know, like 15 or something because he wouldn't stop. It was awesome. And it was so weird because like Ace came on. He's like, Jeremy, how are you? And I'm like, hey, what's up, Ace? He's like, oh, I'm okay. I just got back from Kentucky. I bought a car. I was like, what? Really? He's like, yeah, that's why I had to postpone yesterday. Yeah, I just got back. I'm exhausted. I was like, damn. And it was fine. It was freaking awesome. But
always an adventure.
In between to get there to that step is just a lot of the time. Mitch and I were just like, why do we bother? Why do we do this?
You know, and we've had that before. Jeremy co-host. We co-hosted, you know, together.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to name the artist because I don't want to get into that. Do this big artist from the 80s. They got a new album out.
Yep.
And Jeremy's on the podcast and, you know, in front of the person.
Well, I was pitching like 3 or 4 months before saying like, hey, I'd love to interview so-and-so because I saw him on Zoom on another show. I'd love to talk to him. And they're like,
they said no.
And they were like, no, sorry, he's not available. Right. It's always, he's not available. But then you see him on another, you know, lower grade show. And you're like, really? You chose them over me? Like, you know?
But the funny thing is that a fan on Twitter tweeted about the new album, and I replied, yeah, it's a great album. And you know what would be greater would be an interview with this person. And then the publicist reaches out to me the next, like within an hour and says, you know, if you want to set up an interview, you shouldn't take it to Twitter. And I was like, I didn't take it to Twitter. I responded to a fan. Like,
no, because she didn't say. She said, Mitch, if you want to, you have to stop asking for interviews on Twitter. Yeah. That's not how it goes. You can't be asking for interviews. And you're like, no, I literally responded to a fan saying, I'm excited for the album. I'd love an interview would be even cooler. You never once asked.
No.
I'm pretty sure, and I maintain that artist saw your tweet, who then went to the publicist and said, why isn't Mitch getting an interview? Why isn't he on the list? Because we were asking.
Yeah, they did. And so they gave us the interview, and then Jeremy pops in on it. And then like an hour later, they went, you ask through Twitter for your interviews through Twitter, and then you have random people appear on there. It's not how it works. And it's just
so I actually emailed her a clip because you and we split the clips. You put it up on your channel, I put it up on mine. So I sent the publicist a link saying, "Hey, I finally spoke to so and so. It was great that we were able to set it up last minute. Here's a link. If it'd be great if the artist could share it." And she writes back, and she's like, "Oh wow, I wasn't made aware that you were going to be on the interview as well." And it started this whole. Now she and I are arguing back and forth through email, and she was like, "Oh well, next time I need to be informed of who's going to be on the interview." So and then I wrote back to her and I said, "Well, let me ask you, riddle me this. Every time you book a guest, one of your artists on a morning show in a certain city, and they have like 6 different cast of characters on the morning zoo, are you familiar with every single person that's a co-host on that show?" And she writes back, she said, "Oh yes, I'm made aware of every single person that's going to be speaking to my client." And I was just like, so it's just like bureaucracy. It's like,
that's why we're announcing our retirement here tonight.
Yeah, tonight we're announcing our retirement. It's been great. Done. It's been awesome. It's been swell.
I'm out of here.
Thank you. Good night.
That's interesting. So that was my next question. With all this bureaucracy and all this red tape, do you ever think, forget it, this is not worth it?
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah, every day.
I've quit every day for 3 years.
This year.
4 times since March I've quit. Yeah.
Well, 4 times this week I think you quit.
I can't take it. It drives me crazy. I mean,
it's so bizarre because at the end of the day, we're just trying to do our best to get the word out there about the artists with whatever platform we have. And, we're pretty well established personalities in the podcasting realm at this point. Not only that, with my radio show, it's #1 rated in Canada's 2nd largest city, 7 days a week. I have a profile that you can Google Jeremy White Radio, and I'm there, and you can see who I am. I'm not some like Joe Schmo podcast. So Mitch and I, we always say all the time, hoops that we jump through, people that are established in this industry. I can only imagine how hard it is for new and upcoming podcasters that want to talk to these legends or their idols. And, it's just so unfortunate that there's still such an old school mentality. The old guard is still in charge of the gatekeeping and don't, you know what I mean? It's just, it really is discouraging a lot of the time because we're just trying to do what we can as fans, more first and foremost, to support our favorite artists. Like, I don't interview anybody that I'm not a fan of. Like, we get pitched people every day. Hey, Jeremy, you want to interview so-and-so? Do you want to interview the 6th contestant that got eliminated off American Idol? Or like, like all these random people. And I'm like, no, I don't care. But, and it sucks when you're genuinely a fan of somebody and you get that kind of treatment. Like, Wolf Van Halen, for example, it's like, he knows who I am at this point. We tweet each other all the time. But it's the gatekeeper that's not budging to put my name out on the list or even probably pitch me to him, because I'm pretty sure he knows that as soon as Wolf sees video, I'm like, oh yeah, for sure, Jeremy, we see each other all the time online. And it just sucks because it leaves a sour taste in your mouth as well, because it
does. It does. But anyway, there is a lot of politics and I started doing the rock thing in 1996, and it's 2021, and I keep saying, 25 years is not a bad time to pull the plug.
Are you being serious?
Oh yeah, I'm more than happy to just be the Twitter guy, quite frankly.
Yeah.
At this point, because the social media stuff I'm fully in control of.
Yep.
I can post as much as I want or as little as I want. I can choose to talk about Cheap Trick or this morning I posted about Wham, and I said to myself, I'm going to get a lot of hate if I talk about Wake Me Up Before I Go. And I went, you know what? I don't care.
Yeah.
I'm just going to tweet it. And it gets really aggravating dealing with gatekeepers and stuff, Well,
look what happened to you just the other day with one of the guitarists you interviewed. And the publicist was like, okay, you can't, no, you have to use my Zoom link, and I'm going to let you into the waiting room, and I'm going to give you the option to record, and I'm in full control of everything. So you don't have to do anything. I'm like, okay, great. I could just join in, fucking push forward and do my thing and jump out. But then the interview ended up not being recorded because so it's like these little things where it's just like, oh, why even bother? I literally wasted 40 minutes of my time to have an interview that wasn't even recorded, that I got 10 minutes of.
Yeah,
right.
And it's all just because she wanted to be in control, be the gatekeeper. Here's my link. I'm doing my job. I'm doing, it's,
I'm just going to say, you look at Twitter, I've got 25,000 followers. I do 10 million impressions per month, 10 million per month, 100 million per year, 120 million per year.
There's major digital platforms that wouldn't even crack 1 million a month on Twitter, maybe even 500,000. But the fact that you're doing that, it's unheard of. It's a massive following. You look at the subscriber count, okay, 25,000. It's not the biggest number in the world, but in comparison to a lot of rock journalists or rock platforms,
or even rock
radio,
radio. I mean, you look at most rock radio in most cities; they have 3,000 followers.
Yeah,
but anyway,
and they're not even verified.
Not even here to to pat myself on the back. What I'm trying to say is, I've had enough.
That's why give him a pat on the back. Just give him a little pat.
But I've had enough of playing the game. So, you don't want to talk to me, don't talk to me. You want me to jump through 18 hoops? I mean,
yeah.
And I think some need to realize that we're in this together, and some of the artists that you're pitching, nobody really wants to hear, but I'll be happy to give them a platform. But at the same time, when you have the big star, don't forget my number.
Yeah.
And they sometimes, so.
Well, even that, how many times does that happen? Where we do the C and D lister as a favor to the publicist, but then they get the major A lister, and all of a sudden they're like, oh no, sorry.
That happens.
Really?
I'm not trying to compare this podcast to yours, obviously, but Andy, what's the reason? What's the reason why do this podcast, in your opinion, for you anyway? What is the thrill?
Having fun, man.
Right?
Having fun.
Yeah.
Because if this is I already told you, man. If this gets to a point where we don't have fun, it's time to check out.
The red tape, right?
That's what I said. If every time you post whatever number we're on now and release, I let everything roll on my shoulders. I don't really give a crap. If people don't like me, I don't care. You like me? Great. If you're in the middle, I don't know what to say. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's one of those crazy things, But
Andy, I'm getting the vibe. Andy, I'm getting the vibe that a lot of people don't like you.
Yeah, could be.
What did you do?
What did I do? As you said, being yourself.
Yeah.
Me being me. This is me. I do the same thing on Facebook. I talk the same way, act the same way, and then when you meet me in person, I am the same way. I will stand in front of you and talk like this the same way. People always say, sometimes on the podcast, like, Andy, you're always yelling. No, I'm not yelling. This is my voice. It carries. I get excited. If you're not excited about the band or somebody that you're interviewing, why do it? Why even do the things if you're not excited about it? If you're going to sit there and go, yeah, next question. Hey, dude, what's your favorite whatever? You know what I mean? You guys must have gone through that,
Yeah.
So, well, we did an interview yesterday, and we asked a question, and the answer was, oh, it's the 5th time I'm answering this today, and it's like, yeah, it's like, but not to me. So shut the fuck. Every interview, you're going to be repeating stuff. Get that in your head, like that's how it works, and just smile and repeat it. They're like, oh, that's the 5th time I answered that today. It's like, okay, that doesn't help me, and it makes you sound like a doof on the show.
Yeah.
I don't know what Andy thinks about this, but for me, I take pride in this show because really it's about the general Kiss fans, and from the feedback we've been getting, fans really seem to like the fan profile episodes. They want to know about. They love to hear fan stories.
Well, everyone's going to think Mitch and I are.
No. No, what I guess what
Oh,
I'm
they
saying
got
is
publicists giving them a hard time. Wah,
no.
wah.
What I'm asking is, if we ever get to a point where Andy, we're interviewing Peter Chris or Paul Stanley, and we have to go through all this red tape, would you be willing to do it?
Well, you can only go through red tape. They're either going to say yes and no in the long run. So if they say yes, it's cool. If they say no, you just move on. But I'm not going to
How many hoops would you jump? How many hoops would you jump through?
Oh, all depending on what they're talking about jumping through the hoops. I'm not paying money. Somebody wants money to be on the podcast. Guess what? No,
nobody ever asks for money. That's one thing I've
no. I'm just saying he's just saying about jumping hoops. What kind of hoops you talking about?
How far?
Andy, let me give you an idea. Okay, so with the podcast, first of all, I'm sure you guys aren't making any money from your podcast at all. You're doing it for the sake of it because you love it. Like you said, it's for the fans, it's for the community. There's a big misconception about podcasting where people think they're going to get into it and they're going to maybe be making big bucks. For my podcast and Mitch's podcast, we actually do pretty well, and it does cover a lot of the basic stuff that we do, which is awesome. We're far from rolling in the dough massively, but it's a nice incentive to keep going. Now, when you look at the amount of work that goes into our episodes, between the emailing and the time it takes to book the guests and the correspondence back and forth, and then actually producing, doing the interview and the research and the preparation for it, listening to the record. If there's a new album, you want to listen to the album, that's at least 30, 40, 45 minutes of time, plus all the corresponding, the email, the setting up, sending the Zoom link, sending back and forth. Oh, did you get the Zoom? Okay. Oh, no, we can't do it on Zoom. Oh, okay. We have to do this. Oh, well, we have to find an alternative to that. Or, and then it actually comes down to editing it and then producing it and then uploading it and then writing up the descriptions and the verbiage that goes along with it and tweeting it out there. Each episode minimum is a 10, 12-hour job. And I mean, it's time consuming for very little return of investment unless your episode really blows up. Maybe you'll get covered in a publication. And even that, at that point, you've got websites like Blabbermouth and other ones, that basically just go and transcribe your interview and then monetize it without giving you a kickback. And they say, oh, well, your kickback is exposure. Well, exposure doesn't pay my production costs. I'm doing work for you for free in order for you to then go and monetize it, but I'm not getting anything in return. Is that exposure? Well, that's not going to pay my rent. That's not going to pay for my set, my microphone if it breaks down to keep creating content for you that you're not paying for. That was one of the big things that I realized when I got into podcasting and even talking to Mitch and seeing, the injustices that go on. I was talking to another podcaster the other day. She was so excited that her interview with a major A-lister got picked up in a publication. And I was like, man, I hope, you didn't transcribe that entire article for them. And she's like, oh, no, I didn't. Because a lot of these websites, they'll want you to do the work for them, too. Hey, right. I interviewed so-and-so. Maybe you could cover this. Oh, well, send us a full write-up transcribed of your questions and answers, and maybe we'll consider it. Well, no. Why? That's your job. It makes no sense. So you take all of these into consideration. You might think to yourself, what am I doing? But at the end of the day, it truly is because I have a passion for it and I love it. And that really is my payoff at the end of the day. And I get to talk to the freaking cool people that I'm a fan of. So
I kind of get it. This is a different way. I guess it's like setting up the parties pass. When you set up the parties in Montreal, all the work you have to do. It's like all the stuff, all the parties and stuff I was involved in or being part of it, doing all like you said, the emails, the hotel stuff, the guests. Sometimes you get really good guests that are all cool, and then you get somebody that's a pain in the butt.
Yeah. But like I said, and I really hope that gave a little bit of insight into what it is to be a proper podcaster. And think of all that. Like I said, each episode, it takes, 8 hours to 10 hours. If you end up doing 4 interviews that week, we'll add that up.
Full-time job.
It's a full-time job. On top of that, if you're doing social media, look, the amount of social media that Mitch is involved with every day, the amount of tweets that go out, the Facebook posts, there's research and time that goes into this on this day stuff. He's not just pulling it off some fucking research in order for other fans to get involved.
And what drives me crazy is when others just cut and paste my stuff. That drives me crazy.
And there's a lot of them because your content's good. People are going to steal the good.
There's a lot of copy paste, and it drives me crazy.
And it might sound like I'm bitching or I'm bitter about it. Well, it's furthest from the truth. Like, I'm just trying to give you an idea of what it is actually like in the real world of podcasting. So if people think, oh, I got a microphone, I'm a fan of blah blah blah, let's go and let's try and interview Gene. It's not that easy. There's a lot of stuff that goes on. And you know what? I'm used to it because, like I said, I've been in corporate radio for 10 years now. And I've been used to a lot of this stuff. But the fact that I don't have a team around me to help out with these things, no program director to book interview, say, oh, here, date and time, blah, like I'm doing everything on my own. It really was an eye opener. I was like, fuck. Like, there was a point where I was like, why am I even doing this?
Yeah.
But it comes back to having fun and just enjoying it. So
Exactly.
Yeah, listen, we did Dennis DeYoung the other day, and that was fantastic.
that was awesome. But that's the other thing. You doing this, we've had experiences that you couldn't even buy, Mitch. Like a lot of the time, the experience is the payoff for me as a fan, and that, like I said, is better than any paycheck.
And Dennis is great. New album, 26 Volume East, Part 2, comes out June 11th.
Phenomenal record.
Nice.
Phenomenal.
It is a phenomenal record. It really is.
Yeah, his new song with Tom Morello, The Last Guitar Hero, is insane. It's so good.
So before we close the show, any words of wisdom for anybody that wants to get into podcasting? Mitch.
Oh, I think Jeremy just gave you 2 hours of wisdom right there.
I think I kind of laid it all out there. I laid it all on the line. I'm pretty sure I'm blacklisted by a couple of publications and publicists now. Yeah. But no, honestly, what was the question? Advice?
Words of wisdom.
Words of wisdom.
I mean, the only words of wisdom I will give you is content is king. I mean, you have to have great content. And even if you're just discussing, North American butterflies and that's your podcast, well, make it interesting. Content is king.
Yeah. And be the best podcast about North American butterflies you can,
Yeah. Keep it moving, keep the conversation going. But content is king. I mean, one of the reasons why my Twitter does so well is because it's well curated content,
Yeah, it's consistent. And, I always try and create content that I would be interested in listening to. Like, yeah. I wouldn't put something out that I wouldn't necessarily go back and watch or re-listen to. If I did an interview, like, I would be straightforward and say, like, you know what? This isn't going out. This isn't going out.
I ain't running this now.
This is boring, and I am not interested. Like, why would anybody else?
Well, we did that recently. We had a group on. Again, we're not going to name names. We're not here to bash.
Yeah.
But they set themselves up on a laptop, but they sat about 20 feet away, talking to a laptop mic.
Yeah.
And they sat so far behind because they wanted to get all the band members in the frame, I guess. And you couldn't hear them.
No, because they were distant, and the connection as well. Like, it was just like wonky. So it was not.
And it's just like,
yeah,
Now, to be fair, listen, if it was an interview with Motley Crue and they had done it, of course we would have run it. But it's like, listen, you're trying to make your mark. Get close, get a good mic, get a good vibe. So we canned it. We just went, forget it.
Yeah,
I'm not running it.
No, it is what it is, honestly, and. At the end of the day, we also have a certain brand to us as well. And we have a certain quality standards and quality control and certain expectations. And when you click on the Jeremy White podcast, I want people to see, I want you to know you're getting what you get with the Jeremy White podcast.
Right.
You get the visuals, you get the zip zooms and bangs, you get the British voices, you get, it's like this. It's a brand, same thing with Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon. It's a brand. So you kind of want to create something around you that
T-shirts
selling. Yeah, exactly. You want to have a look. So
yeah,
it's a lot more than just welcome to the show, everybody. Today we're going to be speaking to Pasquale about some Kiss. Like, trying to have a little bit of personality too.
Yeah.
So, Mitch and Jeremy, thank you so much for coming on the show and being so honest and real about the realities in podcasting.
What you see is what you get with us.
No, definitely an eye opener. And I hope people listen to your podcast, Mitch and Jeremy, and enjoy it because I know I do.
Sure. Enjoy.
Kiss Army. Thank you very much for your continued support, and we hope to see you for our next installment. Take care, everybody. Thank you.
And a quick plug, by the way, you can follow and subscribe to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Jeremy White Show. And everywhere on Twitter, Instagram, Jeremy White MTL. You can follow me. Mitch, same thing. You're just at Mitch Lafon, right?
At Mitch Lafon. So much easier. It's easy to find. Easy to find.
Easy to find. And if you want to find any of our interviews, Kiss Army, you just type in Jeremy White, Paul Stanley, Mitch Lafon, Gene Simmons. It's super easy to find, and they're fun. So check them out.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Woo!